Welcome to our presentation. We are Group 13, and we've decided to make our presentation on the game called Mafia. So Mafia was originally designed as an in-person party game, usually done by groups of around 6 people or more. The game became very popular, and due to its very simplistic nature, many other variations and adaptations of it were created, some of which continued to expand on the party game style in person, and others also moved onto the web. For this project, we've decided to model just the basic original implementation of the game as it was originally designed, without including many of the extra additions or variations that were created from it. So how the game actually works is that there are two different teams that each player can be assigned to. One of them is called the town, which will have the most amount of players, and the town is supposed to represent the uninformed majority. And then the smaller team is called the Mafia, which is the informed minority. So how the game works is it rotates between a night phase and a day phase. And the game rotates between a day phase and a night phase, where the roles are able to perform some actions. And the objective of the game is for either the town to discover and eliminate, vote off all of the Mafia members, or for the Mafia to eliminate all the town members without getting caught. So this gameplay loop is represented by the activity diagram on the right side of the screen, where the game starts with the setup phase, and then it proceeds with looping between the day and the night phases and activities for each of the players, and it continues to loop here until the win condition is met, either the town or the Mafia being eliminated, and then the winner is determined, and then the game ends. So the game starts in the setup phase. In this phase, first of all, the moderator of the game has to be selected. The moderator is responsible for just running the game in general, and also for making sure that everything happens fairly. Once the moderator has been determined, then all the players who wish to participate in the game can choose from a deck of cards, and on the card it will have their role, which is either town or the Mafia. And the moderator has to be made aware of everybody's roles, because the moderator has to tell all the Mafia members who all their teammates are, and the town members, they cannot know anybody's identities. So the game starts in the setup phase. In this phase, first of all, the moderator of the game has to be selected. The moderator is responsible for just running the game in general, and also for making sure that everything happens fairly. Once the moderator has been determined, then all the players who wish to participate in the game can choose from a deck of cards, and on the card it will have their role, which is either town or the Mafia. And the moderator has to be made aware of everybody's roles, because the moderator has to tell all the Mafia members who all their teammates are, and the town members, they cannot know anybody's identities. So once the selection phase is over and everybody has the roles and is ready to begin the game starts with the night phase. So in the night phase, all players have to start by closing their eyes. Once the moderator has determined that everybody's eyes are closed, then the moderator will instruct the Mafia members to open their eyes, and then the Mafia members can then silently communicate with each other, and they can select a town member to eliminate from the game. Once the decision on who to eliminate from the game becomes unanimous, then all the Mafia members will close their eyes once again, and then the moderator will instruct all players to open their eyes, and then the night phase ends, and the day phase begins with that selected town member being eliminated from the game. So the day phase begins with the moderator informing all the players of who was eliminated during the night by the Mafia. And then at any point during the discussion, any player is able to accuse anybody else, and then at that point that will start a vote for the elimination of that player. So once the vote starts, then all players will have to submit a vote, either yes or no, for whether or not the accused player should be eliminated. If the vote achieves a majority, that is at least half of the players saying yes, then the accused player will be eliminated from the game, and then the day phase will end and go back to the night phase, assuming the win condition has not yet been met. Whenever the vote does not achieve a majority, then the game will keep on looping back to the discussion phase for another player to be accused and another vote to begin until eventually somebody is eliminated from the game. Now, the end of the day phase here is where the win condition is checked. So that is, if all of the Mafia members have been eliminated from the game, then the game is over and the town wins. And conversely, if all of the town members have been eliminated, then the Mafia wins and the game is over with a Mafia victory. And at this point, if the game is not over, then it returns to another night phase and the game continues to loop.
Now, before we started diagramming and implementing the game, we wanted to make sure that every single member of our group was on the same page. Some of us have played Mafia before, and some of us haven't even heard of the game. So it was important that we built ourselves a very strong foundation. To do this, we began by creating a couple use cases. The first use case was the day phase. The second use case was the night phase for the town. And the third use case was the night phase for the Mafia. Now, each use case goes into detail about how the game plays, the step-by-step process of how it's supposed to work, as well as extensions and etc. This way, everyone was able to understand each individual step of the game and how it was going to play out. Once we all understood how the game worked, we wanted to begin diagramming. Now, we began with activity diagrams because activity diagrams are very good at visualizing how the flow of the game takes place. Now, as you can see here, on the left side, we have our main activity diagram and 4 other sub-activity diagrams. Now, activity diagrams are a great way to show the step-by-step process of how the game operates. And from here, we were able to take the individual use cases and the step-by-step process and create other diagrams from this, such as an interaction diagram or a domain model.
Alright, states of the game. So the state that it starts off with is waiting for new game, and the event start new game triggers the nested state of game. Now from there, the rules are set, and then the event set time of day triggers the discussion in which the town they discuss who they want to accuse. Then the discussion time ends, the players are accused, and the time is set to night. That's when the Mafia, they discuss who they want to kill, which triggers the event. The Mafia kills who they want to kill, and the turn is ended. Great. So, from there, there's a guard condition, is winner. This checks to see if either the town has won by eliminating all the Mafia, or the Mafia has won by getting rid of the town. And if it is not reached, then the loop repeats. It goes back to the discussion, and then more players are accused, more players are killed, until either the town wins, or the Mafia wins. And when that happens, the game is ended, sending it back to the waiting for new game state.
Now that we've established the fundamentals of the game, how the game flows, as well as the different states of the game and how they transition from one state to another, we can begin to imagine our game as multiple different software objects that interact with each other in a domain diagram. A domain diagram finally allows us to create, or at least begin to imagine the game in a software state instead of just its physical components. Taking multiple elements from the activity diagrams as well as the state diagram, we are able to come up with our finalized domain diagram, as you can see here. Once we've completed the domain diagram, we can begin elaborating on the classes and modeling the flow of the game through our software classes. To do this, we used an interaction diagram since it goes much more in depth for each class, and it's a good way to show the order of methods between the classes during the game. As you can see here on this slide, the game begins when the player calls the get role and the get moderator functions, and then repeatedly loops through the day and the night phases until the winner has been decided, just like how it was established in our activity diagrams. This step is extremely important since it's the first steps towards implementing the game as a piece of software rather than just a physical game. As a final step before we begin implementing our code, we can take a combination of our domain diagram and our interaction diagram to come up with a design diagram. This will give us a clear view of every class as well as its variables and its methods as we now begin to write our code.
Alright, so the first main class is the player class, where this represents each and every player in the game, and the variable, the string role, is used to determine whether or not they are a town or a mafia. So this is used in the game class when determining who the winner is, to get the role of the player, to see if they're a town or a mafia, and yeah, it's just to see who the winner is. And then their default class is alive, and if a mafia member kills them, their is alive boolean is set to false because they're dead. Alright, this now brings us to the game class, the software implementation of the game class. So one of the main variables, the way it keeps track of the alive players, is with an array list of type player called alive players. So the game class is responsible for the mechanics of the game. It keeps track of the time, how many days, how many nights, the discussions, and it chooses the moderator. And so one of the methods is winner, is that it takes the runs through all the alive players, and if the number of mafia is greater than the amount of the alive players, the length of the alive players divided by 2, then the mafia is won. Or if the number of mafia is equal to 0, then the town is won. So if the town votes out all the mafia players, then they have won. So there is it also keeps track of the accusing and the killing. So right now, showing the accuse method, where it takes an array list player of players, and it has a vote counter. So for player in players, this basically just keeps track of how many votes each player has against them, and if and it determines which player to remove each turn. So now moving on to the vote kill, it is similar to the vote accuse, except only Mafia can do it rather than the entire town, where they vote to kill off a player, and whoever has the most votes, that is the player who is killed.
Now we're moving on to the last class, which is the card class. Card class purpose is to assign roles to players in the game. This class is simply made of 2 functions, generate role and create. The generate role function basically returns a list of roles for the corresponding number of players attending the game. We want to keep the number of Mafia players from 2 to 4, depending on the total participants. The game should only has 1 moderator as well. Secondly, the create function takes an array list of players as its parameter and randomly assign roles to all the players in the list. This function can be called in the game class to assign roles to players.